The PlayStation 5 reveal event is just a few days away now, and at this point it looks like we are going to be seeing a lot of game reveals, which I think is what the majority of people have been waiting for. And I want to, in this video, highlight 5 games that I would love to see as a part of the reveal event. And I think all of these have a relatively decent chance of actually happening. A couple of them more so than others, but nevertheless, we've only got 5 games. I'll talk a little bit about each of them, and we'll go from there. First of all, Horizon 2, whatever they want to call it, Horizon Zero Dawn 2. I don't think they can call it Horizon Zero Dawn 2 because I don't think it's Zero Dawn anymore. Nevertheless, Horizon 2 is a game that I really do expect is going to be there. Guerrilla Games is already teasing on Twitter that they are going to be a part of the PlayStation 5 reveal event, and they've been quiet for a very long time. It's been 3 years since Horizon Zero Dawn came out. I know a few months after that we got Frozen Wilds. But 3 years without hearing a peep from Guerrilla Games is a long time. Hey, it's been north of 3 years at this point. 3 years and 4 months. Horizon 2 is a game that would be a really big launch title for the PlayStation 5. Horizon 2, would be the follow-up to a game that ended up selling 10 million copies, and as a new IP selling 10 million copies, that is a very impressive feat. And I think as a launch title, it would be that one game that a lot of the core PlayStation audience would be absolutely enamored by, and that would immediately draw them into buying the game. The PlayStation audience already has this big attachment towards the Sony IPs and the game franchise. Horizon is one that is really developed with the PlayStation 4. It's not like you're going back into the well and dragging something out that's a little bit older, which is fine. You can absolutely do that, and we're going to see some of that in this category. However, Horizon is still a game that's relatively fresh in everyone's mind. The majority of PlayStation 4 owners played the game, and Horizon 2 would just be building upon that idea of Sony wanting to make the transition from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 as seamless as possible. Why not drop the follow-up to one of the most iconic PS4 games as a launch title to the PS5? That makes all the sense in the world. And hey, Guerrilla Games was a part of the PlayStation 4's launch. It would be coming full circle if they were a part of the PlayStation 5 launch as well, but now with a brand new IP, building upon a new IP that they created last time around with Horizon Zero Dawn back in 2017. Alright, next up, here's one that everybody is rumbling about, and this seems like a rumor that so many people want to see come to fruition. A Demon's Souls remake. So Bluepoint Games, the masters of remaking and remastering games, are obviously working on something for the PlayStation 5. There's been a lot of talk as far as what that game is. Is it a Legend of Dragoon remake? I don't know about that one. I mean, I'm a big fan of Legend of Dragoon, but I don't think it's Legend of Dragoon. I would love to see that, but I think more likely than not, it's a Demon's Souls remake, and I think this would be an absolute juggernaut of a launch title, just because Souls as a franchise has become so much bigger than I think anyone ever expected it to be. Going back to 2009 when Souls kicked off with the release of Demon's Souls here in the West, it was a game that I thought would do okay. I thought it would sell decently well, but it ended up exploding, and now Souls is one of the most popular franchises in all of gaming. And not only that, Souls is a franchise with an absolute hardcore fan base. They are so into the Souls game, so if you get a Souls title as an exclusive and it's Demon's Souls remake, which a lot of people missed out on because that was still 09, it was the early days of Souls, and it was a PS3 exclusive that a lot of people here in the West didn't even have a PS3, well, that would be a gigantic coup for Sony. And again, it's Souls. Souls is always gonna have a place in the market, especially for PlayStation, and Demon's Souls is one of those games that it's kind of idolized by a lot of people, as this was the game that really brought Souls to the forefront. But it's also at the same time a game that a lot of people did miss out on, because while Dark Souls ended up becoming multi-platform and Bloodborne was released on the PlayStation 4, which was ultimately a far more successful console than the PlayStation 3, Demon's Souls is a game that there's really no way to go back and play the game. How are you going to go back and play Demon's Souls? Maybe there's a PlayStation 3 emulator that runs Demon's Souls relatively well with RPCSX3. Nevertheless, for the console-minded gamer and the ones that are only playing on consoles, the only option you have is to drag out your PlayStation 3. The only option you really have is to drag out your PlayStation 3 and get a copy of Demon's Souls, and who really wants to be doing that with no backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 5 not having backwards compatibility to the PS3? It's time that we have the opportunity to play Demon's Souls again. But not only that, remade from the ground up on the PlayStation 5. Did you see what Bluepoint did with Shadow of the Colossus? That was one of the best remakes I've ever played. Can they offer us something like that with Demon's Souls? Well, if they can, that would be a remake for the ages and an absolute system seller for the PlayStation 5. Alright, moving on from that, Now, Insomniac put out Spider-Man in 2018. That was late 2018, but by what I know, Insomniac is a relatively large studio now, and they can be working on multiple projects. How about we see another entry in their other beloved IP, that of course being Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet & Clank hasn't seen a new release since 2016, and that was just a reboot and a remake of the very first Ratchet & Clank title. I want to see a new Ratchet & Clank game. Hell, I would be fine with a Ratchet Future remake series, because Ratchet & Clank Future Tools of Destruction, Future Crack in Time, those games were fantastic. But also, I would love to see a new start for Ratchet & Clank, a new storyline for the Lombax, and of course Clank, who is an awesome character. Those two are such a great tandem, and I feel like they haven't been done justice over the last few years. Ratchet & Clank 2016 was absolutely awesome, but that was just a remake. Look, if they want to remake the other games, Going Commando, Up Your Arsenal, and Deadlock, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I do want a new start for Ratchet & Clank, a new set of games, and a new story. Ratchet is a franchise that still has a lot of love behind it, and again, this would be a series that a lot of people are nostalgic with. If you had Horizon, that's the game for the newer PlayStation fan and the PlayStation 4 audience that got super invested into those games. Demon's Souls targets a Souls audience and a Souls crowd that extends beyond PlayStation, and then you can also tackle nostalgia with Ratchet & Clank and offer that as a new game. I think that makes all the sense in the world, and if Insomniac is working on it, like a lot of rumors are suggesting, I think it would be a great PS5 launch game. And again, Spider-Man has been out for, what, 2 years? They've had sufficient time to work on something new, and they are a pretty big studio. Now being a first-party studio, a Sony-owned studio, I think there's a lot of potential for them to put out some highly, highly compelling games. Spider-Man 2 will absolutely come. That game is absolutely in development. You know what happened at the end of Spider-Man 1. That story is not finished yet, but we can take a little bit of a breather. I'm all for studios working on multiple franchises and transitioning and alternating between releases. That's why I think a studio like Guerrilla that has offered us Killzone games, then Horizon games, and maybe they'll go back to something else in the future and always shaked it up. I always like that, and it keeps these games fresh. Well, Insomniac doing that with Spider-Man and Ratchet & Clank, I think that does a lot of good for both franchises and keeps them fresh as a studio as well. Next up, here's a rumor that's been making the rounds quite a bit and really going into overdrive the last week, and that is Silent Hills, the return of Silent Hill. Whether it be a remake, whether it be a brand new title, we know that Silent Hills was a title scheduled for the PlayStation 4. Everybody knows about the PT demo. Unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition, but Sony could possibly broker a deal with Konami to allow the development of the game. The rumor is Sony Japan Studio is working on it, and that means all the good in the world. Silent Hills is a franchise that I think a lot of people want to see come back, and again, another one with some name value to it, one that's been MIA for a little bit, and it's a little bit of a legend at this point because everybody knows about the PT demo. Having something like this, maybe not necessarily at launch. I don't think Silent Hills will be at launch. I think the aforementioned 3 games are more likely to be the launch games. Nevertheless, I think Silent Hill can offer us something very, very good sometime in 2021 if we can get that off the ground. And word has it that it has been in development for the last 18 months or so, so let's see that come to fruition. And obviously, with the Dead by Daylight inclusion of Silent Hills content recently, these rumors are clearly going into overdrive. And lastly, I think it's about time. A lot of the people aren't talking about this, but what about God of War 2? It's been a while since God of War has come out. We talked about it's been 2 years since Spider-Man. Well, it's been 2.5 since God of War, and I'm not necessarily saying it's going to be a launch game. Far from it. I don't even think it's going to be a spring 2021 game, which would mean spring 2021 would be 3 years since the release of God of War 1, God of War 2018, so that is a lengthy time period, but we've seen game development is getting longer and longer, although the foundation for God of War is now already set. They've got the engine, they've got the characters, but these games are so ambitious now that I do think they're going to take longer and longer to develop. Look, it took Naughty Dog 4 years from Uncharted 4, The Last of Us Part 2. It took Sucker Punch 6 years from Infamous Second Son to Ghost of Tsushima. Game development time is getting longer and longer. It's now airing on the side of 3.5 years to 4 years, where it used to be every 2 years you would see these developers put out games. Think about it this on the PlayStation 3, 2007, Uncharted 1, 2009, Uncharted 2, 2011, Uncharted 3, 2013, The Last of Us Part 1. In 4 years, they put out 4 different games. That's kind of crazy to think about, but yeah, that was the rapid pace that they were putting games out, and I actually misspoke there. In 6 years, they put out 4 different games. You guys get the idea. They were just putting out games at a far more consistent rate, but at that time, game development was a little bit different from the grandiose stage that it is at now when we're getting games like God of War 2018. However, Even if God of War 2 isn't completely ready to be released, I do think a revelation is coming sooner rather than later, whether it be a teaser trailer, whether it be a quick gameplay clip. Even if it's out in a year and a half from now, I think a reveal is likely sooner rather than later, especially because consider the fact God of War 2018 was revealed at E3 of 2016, if my memory is correct, so that was, what, 2 years before the game ultimately came out, and I do think God of War 2 is going to be out within 2 years. That's going to conclude this video. Again, everybody is excited for the PS5 reveal event coming this Thursday, June 4th. What games do you want to see at the event? Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.